Hi, I'm Catherine Jean Lopez from National Review and the National Review Institute. And I have with me Jamie Bryan Hall from the Ethics and Public Policy Center. Um, Jamie, you, with Ryan Anderson, um, produced a paper that came out last week on how the abortion pills harm women. And it's gotten some buzz, but frankly, not as much as it should, because what you found is that the abortion pills are much more harmful than the FDA has told us, and really we should be backtracking and putting back in place some regulations that we had before. Can you tell us why the report is important? And also, you had a FAQ, frequently asked question document that came out too. Could you talk about why you did that as well?
Sure. So our study is the largest known study of the abortion pill. We're looking at 865,727 chemical abortions that occurred in the United States from 2017 to 2023. These are abortions that were paid for by insurance or by government programs. We're able to look at the health records of the women de-identified, so we don't know exactly who they are, but we're able to track a woman through her entire journey, and we're able to see within the 45 days after she took the abortion pill what happened with her health. And it's astonishing. We find that about 1 in 10 women will experience a serious adverse event. It's actually a 10.93% of women will experience something like an infection that could lead to sepsis, hemorrhaging that could require a blood transfusion. Maybe she has to go to the ER for some serious complication related to the abortion. She might even be hospitalized. So these are the sorts of things that we're able to track with this real world data for actual women who are taking the abortion pill here in the United States today. And it's just much, much worse than the FDA ever lets on. In the drug label for mifepristone, they claim that less than 0.5% of women experience serious adverse events. But these are clinical trials that were conducted in some cases almost 40 years ago in France. It's not really representative of the conditions that women are taking this pill under here in the United States today, where the restrictions are safeguards really that were put in place in order to protect their health when the drug was first approved back in 2000 have been chipped away at over time to where now it's possible for a woman just to fill out a form online, get the pill in the mail, take it at home, and just hope everything turns out okay. Well, clearly not everything's turning out okay.
Well, and even before you did this study, um, this is a cruel thing that we do to women. Um, Particularly now, we're talking about even telehealth um, prescriptions of abortions. I always make the point that that movie Unplanned, about Abby Johnson leaving her job at Planned Parenthood as a director in Texas, was rated R because of the scene in the bathroom where she's having the abortion. And it wasn't particularly gruesome or exaggerated. It was the reality that women deal with, and was my understanding was even downplayed.
Exactly. Yeah, today in the US, about two-thirds of abortions are these chemical abortions. The woman's just taking a pill, generally at home, and trying to get through the process on her own without any real assistance or care from any physician throughout that process. And it's terrible to think like what she's going through. Yeah, with, often, yeah, the pieces of her baby end up in the toilet and she doesn't. I mean, yeah, it's just awful to think about, and it's hard to imagine like actually trying to deal with that. So it's terrible in that sense, but it's also subjecting her to great risk to her own health. Because originally, when the mifepristone abortion pill was approved back in 2000, the woman had to go to the doctor at least 3 times throughout the process in order to make sure that everything was going okay for her. Obviously, not okay for the baby, but okay for her during the process. So they had to screen her initially to make sure that she did not have an ectopic pregnancy or any other condition that could lead to extremely severe complications for her, and actually give her the pill there in the office. She took it there in the presence of the doctor who prescribed it to her. If anything went terribly wrong right away, she was right there at the doctor. Then 2 days later, when she would take the misoprostol pill that actually causes the remains of the baby to be removed from her body, she would also do that there at the doctor's office in case anything went terribly wrong. And then 2 weeks after the whole process began, she had to go back to the doctor's office to make sure that there weren't any indications of an infection, or that there weren't still pieces of the baby inside her uterus or anything like that that could happen. But nowadays, there's nothing at all to make sure that she doesn't experience these problems throughout the process. And that's how it's possible to end up with 1 in 10 women experiencing a serious adverse event as a result.
So, what was the reasoning that safeguards were dropped by the FDA?
Officially, they would say that it's not really necessary because they'll run some studies with a small number of participants and say they didn't find dramatically worse results, so they were able to chip away at them during the Obama administration. They never really looked at each of the safeguards that they were removing as, in conjunction with the others to see how it all added up. So if, like, maybe no longer requiring that the pill be taken in person might not have been a big deal by itself, but along with some of the other changes, like no longer requiring that a doctor actually prescribe the pill and allowing others to do so. And like all of these things that they've gotten rid of over the years just add up in a way that makes it so that the increased risk, I think, is much greater than any of the smaller studies that they were trying to use to justify the changes could have been made. And then the final major change that happened was initially taking advantage of the COVID emergency to say that the woman didn't even have to go to the doctor for the first pill to even be checked appropriately to see if she had an ectopic pregnancy. And that's really, really when it became just like the Wild West for abortion pills, with everything being available online, sent through the mail, no real interaction with any healthcare professional, especially not any real interaction with any doctor throughout the process.
Now, you, as I mentioned, issued a follow-up, EPPC did, with some frequently asked questions. You guys seem super confident in this study. I know some of the questions were fairly basic ones, like sometimes these pills are used for other reasons. Those weren't counted in this study. These are purely abortion, right?
Right. Yeah. We were very careful not to count anything in this study that was not a prescribed mifepristone abortion. We're able to identify these using the insurance coding. We're able to see not only was the woman prescribed mifepristone, but why was she prescribed mifepristone, and make sure that it was because she was there for an elective termination or an unwanted pregnancy, not that she was there for a miscarriage, because there are some cases where it may be given to a woman who's experiencing a miscarriage. So we were careful not to include those. There were also lots of questions about ER visits. we're only counting those related to the abortion where the woman experiences a serious adverse event. So there has to be actual treatment for a diagnosed health problem related to the abortion in the ER in order for us to count the ER visit. We weren't just like if she fell and broke her arm or something. We're not going to count that. If she was in a car accident, we're not going to count that. It has to actually be something related to the abortion. And we're still even with excluding 72% of all the ER visits because they weren't related to the abortion or weren't provably related to the abortion, right? Like, we were able still to find that in 4.7% of the cases, the woman did go to the ER for a serious adverse event related to the abortion.
So I you've gotten a lot of attention for this study, but you haven't gotten the kind of mainstream attention you should. And we can go into all kinds of theories about why. Some of them, frankly, quite obvious that have to do with politics, in the politics of abortion. But I also have to say that I've been disappointed, maybe even a little angered by the timid response by Republicans, with some exceptions, Josh Haley being the standout exception. Um, are you surprised, or you think I'm being unfair?
There were at least five members of Congress who came out on the first day and commented on this. Yes, I'd like to see more, and I think we will be seeing more of this in the coming days and weeks. I think it just takes time in some cases for everyone to process everything. I mean, we hadn't told anybody this was coming or anything like that. So,
And I
so,
do think the Pope died the same day
and
that you
yeah,
released the study.
yeah, yeah, that could have had
Yeah,
a
that
little
could have something to do with it.
intentionally, but yeah, I hadn't talked to anybody beforehand telling them that this was coming. Be ready to to issue your statement or anything like that. So I think that we will gain more attention. We're going to have more papers coming out, not just the frequently asked questions fact sheet document that you saw yesterday, but we're also going to have more papers with more details on exactly what happened to these women after taking the abortion pill. So I think that will help to keep the attention level high out there and hopefully eventually lead to more public statements from more prominent officials. And ultimately, I mean, our goal isn't really to get the congressmen out there talking. Our goal ultimately is to get the FDA to take action. And however that happens, whether it's through congressional pressure or through just the FDA deciding to on its own that, hey, we need to take a look at this. This is a real signal here that something's not right. Either way, what we're going for is results. So I
Right.
think that there's definitely something here for the FDA to go on.
Well, of course, the reason I'm looking at Republicans and wanting them to respond is because we want pressure on the administration, because there have been mixed signals, to put it gently, from the administration, on whether chemical abortion is going to be addressed at all. And so, yeah, we definitely want to encourage the FDA to take a look at your report.
Sure. And yeah, like you were saying, that President Trump during the campaign said that he wanted to maintain access to chemical abortion. Of course, disagree with that as a matter of principle, but he also said he wants to keep women safe, that he wants to protect health in general, all the Make America Healthy Again. And he said during the campaign that he wanted to leave abortion to the states. And I think the key point here is as long as you can ship abortion pills from California to Texas or from New York to Kentucky or where, anywhere that you want within the country without any real supervision, you haven't actually left abortion to the states.
Right.
If you reinstate the requirements for the safeguards, the 3 visits, or at least even the 1 visit to protect the women's health, what you've done is you've made it so that the states then who want to regulate abortion more strictly are actually able to do so. And I think that's a key point here, that if you not only are you helping protect the women, you're allowing the states to have greater pro-life restrictions in general.
And you make an excellent, important point, and I know my friend Charlie Camosi gets very excited about this. This Make America Healthy Again thing, like green, concerns for the earth, concerns for what you're putting in your body. These are all grounds upon which pro-lifers can meet people who aren't necessarily pro-life and say, hey, wait a second, what are we giving women here?
Oh,
uh,
absolutely. When else would you give women something completely optional that has a 1 in 10 chance of causing a serious complication? And about half of those who have a serious complication end up in the hospital. So you're talking like a 1 in 20% chance of ending up at the ER or being hospitalized. What else would you give a woman other than the abortion pill that causes something like that when she's perfectly healthy?
and also, as you say, not have the medical oversight. And as you point out, not only are these pills going through the mail, but you have the situation like in New York where the Democratic governor is saying, I absolutely want doctors to send pills to Texas. And so you have states essentially going after each other. um Now, when you released the FAQ, the word airtight was used, and I know too that there's this hope that the FDA will replicate this study. What Why are you so confident in the study?
We were very careful with what we included and excluded. We tried to follow the FDA's definition of serious adverse event throughout the analysis, even more closely than it was followed on the drug label. That's actually one of the problems that we've run into. Some people are saying, oh, well, you're not doing an apples to apples comparison because you're including events that weren't included on the drug label. Well, the problem is the drug label itself didn't include every type of event that the FDA definition of serious adverse event says is supposed to be included. So if we only look at what's on the drug label, yeah, we're going to end up leaving things out because the FDA left stuff out. And that's the problem, right? That we need to be looking at everything that matters here that's normally considered serious. We don't want to give mifepristone an exception for any reason. So we have to do that. I think that in general, we we know these are abortions. We know these are real women who actually experience these events. There's money changing hands from the insurance companies to the doctors on the basis of this information. We're not making anything up. Like it's right there for anyone with access to the data to see. And there are many organizations who have access to this data because it's so commonly used nowadays. Insurance companies, healthcare companies in general would have it. A lot of academic researchers would have access to this data. So it's there, I'm sure thousands of people out there who would be able to replicate this if they wanted to do so. I just think we were probably the first people who actually had access. Uh-oh, I think the
All
video
right.
froze.
You said the last time I got you, the last thing you said was you were the first people who took a look
Oh,
at had
oh, okay.
access and took a look at it.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. We were the first people who had access to this data who took a look at it on this scale. There were a few smaller studies looking at like maybe Medicaid patients in one state, things like that. There were some who looked at maybe even a little more than that, but definitely this is the largest study of this sort that exists, covering data for 7 years. Any woman in the US who had one of these chemical abortions that was paid for or processed through her insurance. So 865,727 cases. So it's definitely these are real people, real women who are experiencing real problems as a result of this drug, and there's not really at this point any doubt about that.
Um, you are I hope you don't mind me saying a data geek. Um, would that be correct?
Sure, yeah, yes, that's what I do. Wherever I've worked with data over
And
25 years.
that is that's an important piece of the pro-life movement. But maybe a piece that we haven't always had to the same level. Um um are How important is this work, and do you is ethics and public policy planning on doing more of it going forward?
This, I think this report is critical in just showing the reality of the world that we're living in today. And we definitely plan to do more. We're going to be digging into this data in greater detail, looking at the different types of women, the experiences that they might have had. We're going to be able to look at the different um, insurance companies and government programs that paid for these abortions and exactly what was happening in those situations. We're going to be able to see how often does the abortion pill even work? And of course, every time it works, that's a problem too, as far as I'm concerned. But is it even actually achieving its objective of ending a pregnancy? So we're going to be able to look at these in just much greater detail in the coming weeks and months.
And you hit on something. The Babylon Bee can be a little fearless on this issue, I do have to say, abortion generally. And they did have a headline like surprise, a pill that kills hurts women too. Um, but at the same time, this is an opportunity to say, okay, wait, are we all actually concerned about women here? Can there at least be that meeting ground? And flowing from that a little bit, it's a little bit of an obnoxious question coming from me, but I think it's well intentioned, coming from people who disagree with us. Um, why are two men talking about this issue? Do you have any right to be talking about this?
I mean, the data is the data, regardless of the chromosomes of the person who analyzed it. I certainly care about women. I'm married. My wife is a woman. We have a daughter. Like, I definitely care about women's health and want what's best for them. And if a woman makes a decision like this or is considering a decision like this for abortion, of course I would disagree with the decision, but like I don't want her to end up hurt
Right,
or
right.
as a result of it. So of course I care about women's health.
Yeah, and she's already suffering enough. Abortion is always a terrible thing, and even if you're not morally opposed to it, most Americans agree that it's not an ideal. Um,
Right, right. They used to want it to be like Bill Clinton said, safe, legal, and rare. Well, what happened to the safe part of that?
right,
Um, yeah, it seems that's definitely been lost over the last 25 years since this drug was approved.
right, right. Well, I have to thank you so much, Jamie, for doing this work, for putting the report out there. I know I've been trying to talk about it as much as possible this last week, and yeah, whatever we can do to make sure there's less harm in this culture of death that we do live in. That's at least a starting point. So thank you for what you're doing, and please let us know when there's more to come.
Sure. Thank you for helping to spread the word on this topic. Really
And it's
appreciate
eppc.org, right?
it. eppc.org, and our special webpage that we set up just for this project is stopharmingwomen.org. If anyone wants to go there, they can see not only all the report and all the information, but we actually have testimonials from some of the women and their families who've been affected by mifepristone. So that ideally is the website that you would share with anyone who's kind of on the fence about what should be done here.
Thank you so much, Jamie Bryan Hall. Appreciate it.
Thank you.